Konbanwa. Good evening. A very warm welcome this evening, and we are absolutely delighted to welcome amidst us a great friend of India. He has a Japanese mind, but as in the diplomatic world it is known, he has an Indian heart. And therefore, he was even inspired to write a book, not just talk about the subject, but write a book on this amazing theme of India, the last superpower. And we thought that he should talk about the promising Japan-India relationships. Friends, we are delighted to have amidst us the former ambassador. He, of course, has been ambassador to several prominent countries on behalf of Japan. Importantly, he was in Rome, Paris, Beijing, Brussels, Washington, D.C., but his 4 years tenure from 1998 to 2002 will be long remembered in the as a turning point of the Japan-India relations, and he will explain how it happened in his address. No wonder he was then, and very appropriately, requested by the very historic Japan-India Association. You know, when you talk of Japan-India Association, which is popularly known as the JIA, and in the good old days it was called the IJA, the Indo-Japanese Association in Tokyo. If you have to guess the age of an association, well, we take pride in saying that AMA is more than 60 years old. But then, if an association which has completed a landmark of more than a century, an association which was founded in 1903, just imagine, when India was not even a free India, it was a British regime, and there was no Japanese diplomatic, you can say, set up in this country. Our diplomatic relations started much later, almost in 1952, as he was mentioning. But imagine that the Japan-India relations are as old as, of course, you know, when we talk of that, it started from the times of Lord Buddha. You know, when Buddha went to Japan, you know, that was when Japan-India was united in a very unique spiritual manner. But it was in the year 1903, so 115 years ago, this historic association which was established, and since 2007, he has been the president of this association, the chairman of which is the former Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Yoshihiro Mori. The association is generally headed by as a chairman by a very, very eminent person, and here we have who was formally inducted as like one of the first honorable presidents of the association since they had this dual setup of chairman and president. Friends, I am extremely delighted to welcome amidst us this evening and present before you His Excellency, former Ambassador, Mr. Hiroshi Hirabayashi. Let us give him a very warm round of applause. And I would request him to kindly remain standing for a moment, because we all want to give you a standing ovation for what? Let me announce that. Only last week, he was presented with the highest honor, what is known as the Order of the Rising Sun, by the Emperor of Japan, as a great mark of appreciation of his contribution as a diplomat. So, Hirabayashi-san, heartiest congratulations. Well, friends, it is, I would say, in fact, so many of us had the opportunity, those present here, to have been with him. In fact, for me, personally, it is nostalgia, because as I was reminding him, Yatindrabhai, when, if you recall, I was the president at the Gujarat Chamber and you were the president here at AMA in those years of 99-2000, Ambassador Hirabayashi came and addressed our Gujarat Chamber, and you were also there at that time. He and his wife, it's almost after 20 years, another homecoming for him to Ahmedabad in Gujarat. We had the privilege of meeting him once again. I had, of course, met him many times more, but collectively, many friends from AMA, including my colleagues at the Indo-Japan Friendship Association, we met him when we led a goodwill delegation to Japan last year, and at the Hanami reception, as we call it, at the times of cherry blossom, at the Indian Embassy, we had Ambassador Hirabayashi, who was also there with us, amongst many dignitaries who were present. And friends, the pictures that you see here, the two pictures, you know, they are as recent as September of 2018, hardly about 2 months ago, when the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of Gujarat, along with me, we led a small delegation to Japan, particularly on the occasion of the 150th anniversary of Hyogo in Kobe, the state with which Gujarat has a sister state relations, and Kobe has a sister city understanding. At that time, you see next to the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister, His Excellency Mrs. Sujan Chinoy, the Ambassador of India to Japan, and Ambassador Hirabayashi and myself, we had the privilege of signing and exchanging the MOU entered into between the Japan Center at AMA, the baby of the Ahmedabad Management Association and the Indo-Japan Friendship Association Gujarat, and the Japan-India Association. And so let me tell you, it gave us the thrill. Like in 2009, when Japan became a country partner for Gujarat, you know, national association joining hands with a state association, the similar feeling when Japan shook hands with Gujarat, we were extremely delighted. This morning and afternoon, we had a lot of deliberations as to how the JIA and AMA and Japan Center, IJFA, could jointly collaborate and work together to ensure that we carry forward our relationship in a more meaningful manner. So we are extremely grateful to you for making this short but very sweet trip. And friends, I would request our former President and the Chairman of Economic Cooperation Council, Mr. Yatindra Sharma, to present flowers to Ambassador Hirabayashi. Friends, the Ambassador is going to present his PPT, and after which we will have a question time when you can feel free to ask him questions. May I request Ambassador Hirabayashi to please come and deliver his address. Amidst once again a warm round of applause from all of you.
Thank you very much, President Patel. Thank you very much for the past President, Mr. Sharma. All the friends of Japan, I have to say, ladies and gentlemen. At the request of President Patel, I am here. This is the second visit for me, the first one as Ambassador of Japan, now as the President of Japan-India Association. But without spending much on such things, I would like to go straight into my remarks about how I perceive India as future superpower. In my view, simply putting, for Japan, there are 5 keywords to understand India. First, the size of the space, almost equivalent to the size of European Union, 9 times bigger than Japan. Maybe more importantly, the number of the population, which is growing still. You have the so-called population bonus. We are a shrinking nation in terms of the demographic things. Second, according to Mr. Nehru, unity in diversity. You are very much diversified country, but you are, since independence, unified. Your national integrity has never been put in question. The third, you are the world's largest democracy. This size of country, being always democratic, is not a very easy proposition, but you have achieved this since your independence. Fourth, from the viewpoint of Japan, what is very important is that India has been always pro-Japan nation. I would explain why. Number 5, India is a very important country, a partner of all of us in terms of strategic and geopolitical importance. I would explain that also. The why I perceive India as a superpower. Without question, the United States is a superpower. With many questions, China may be qualified as a superpower or developing superpower. Russia may be the same. Many people don't like China nor Russia in the world, but they are having the many qualities to be called superpower or superpower to be in future. As I said, number 1 qualification is the size of the space and the population, increasingly educated population. Second, what is very important is what the Indian diplomats call strategic autonomy. A country called superpower should not be vacillating because of the pressures, because of many things coming out of various parts of the globe. That includes the military power, not only economic power, not only cultural software power, but also to some extent military powers, including nuclear deterrence. Unless you have nuclear deterrence, you may be faced with nuclear threat from China or from Pakistan. Now, you are not subject to that. Number three, international influence. India is a country which is exercising huge influence in the United States and in other international fora. Fourth, as I said, the largest democracy. China and Russia are not democracies. So not good superpowers, but superpowers. India should be a superpower based on democratic values, human rights, and others. Fifth, what is very important in my view is cultural or civilizational traditions. You are one of the four major civilizations in the world. Why the last superpower, India? India may be a superpower in 20 years' time, maybe 25, but anyway, in my view, a superpower. But why the last? There may be candidates. Name any country you like. Brazil is a big country. Indonesia in Asia is a big country. But they have not all the qualifications of this. I don't mention. Brazil, cultural software, not so strong military power, etc. Let alone Indonesia. So, in this sense, India will be the last superpower. Japan can't be a superpower. Dwindling population, small space, no nuclear deterrence, good culture. A very important country in Asia as well as in the world, but not to be a superpower. Anyway, the Japanese want to be a superpower anyway. But India's path to superpower are not so smooth in my view. According to Mr. Modi, Mr. Modi is making good slogans, making India, skill India, minimum government, minimum governance or something like that. By the way, one of his jokes vis-a-vis Japanese is this. I am Modi. I know former Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Mori. Mori and Modi are almost similar pronunciations. And Mr. Prime Minister said, Mr. Mori is very popular because after the nuclear test in 1998, he restored our relationship by way of declaring, together with Mr. Vajpayee, Vajpayee-san, the global partnership for 21st century. And then our relationship has started again to going up and up until then. So Mr. Modi is highly respected in India. And Modi, must be following the popularity of Mr. Modi in India. So I want to be as popular as Modi in India as the Prime Minister of India. That's one of the favorite jokes of Mr. Narendra Modi. So anyway, you are pursuing growth strategy, and what is very important, reforms. Japan is also having some difficulties in reforming our systems. It's not so easy, but I think the Modi-san is perceived as a man of reform, overcoming many opposition, as resistance and others. Infrastructure building, but I know that your state here is not in shortage of electricity and others. No? So Mr. Modi's legacy as chief minister is pretty excellent here. He continues on a national scale as prime minister. social reform, which is maybe more difficult and important. I'm sorry to say, but in order to be an excellent superpower, Indians are recommended to get rid of the caste system, which is very difficult because caste system is deep-rooted in your society, closely connected with Hinduism. No, not easy ones. But since your constitution banned the discrimination, you have been trying by introducing reservation systems and others. When I was nominated ambassador of Japan here, your president was K.R. Narayana. You know, excellent, splendid president out of Dalit class. So people have been working to reach the stage of having a president from that class. Mayawati-san was chief minister in UP, many others. So you have been trying very much. But I hope, I'm pro-India. I hope that India would become a respected superpower. For that, maybe better not to have caste system. Removal of corruption, I can't teach any lesson because we have also our own corruptions. But this is very important. Poverty alleviation, maybe more important. This one is closely related with the caste system in a sense. In terms of strategic importance, India's path is smoother with major powers except China. So India has been nurturing strategic partner with major powers, including Japan, especially with the United States. But management with China is very difficult proposition. For me, it's very difficult. We have so many problems with the Chinese, even though we have introduced so much of Chinese cultures, including kanjis and characters and others. But we invaded China before the Second World War. They don't pardon. Some of the Chinese don't pardon that. Some of the Chinese may pardon, but don't forget. It's okay. I would explain the state of affairs now, if I have some chance. The third one, I think the incumbent government is practicing. What is very important is to have good neighborly relationship. And we have also the same kind of problems with Koreans, with Chinese. Neighbors are difficult in any places. UK and France, Canada and the United States. Neighbors are difficult in everywhere, almost everywhere. All of us, on individual basis, some difficulties. But hopefully, because India is the strongest power in the region, India is expected to show some flexibility, some lenience, some cooperative spirit and others, in spite of many problems coming out of them. Of course, Pakistan is something apart. I'm speaking about Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives. Pakistan is a country apart, and you have all the reasons to have the problems with Pakistan. Fourth, you are influencing on the international society by means of the United States, United Nations. We are pledged to cooperate with India, Brazil, and Germany to become a permanent member of the Security Council. What is very important now is the combination, cooperation of Prime Minister Abe inspired Indo-Pacific strategy. Now, Mr. Abe is using, instead of strategy, vision, Indo-Pacific Vision, because the word strategy may be sounding a little bit strong, may be interpreted by China as different notion. So, open and free Indo-Pacific Vision, which is in good tandem with Mr. Modi's Act East policy. Congress governments have been pursuing Look East policy, like Dr. Mahathir of Malaysia. Apparently, Mr. Modi is not content with simply looking east. Mr. Modi is proactive, so he wants to be engaged more proactively in East Asia. This policy is all welcome by Japan, ASEAN countries, and others. And the last one is how to extend this cooperative relationship between India and Japan to Africa, to Middle East. You are strongly based in Eastern Africa, Southern Africa. We want to be associated with India to promote various projects in Africa, maybe in the Middle East, maybe in the Central Asia. China, I don't speak very much about this. China intends to go beyond her borders, maritime advancement in 3 directions. One is to the Western Pacific, in order to prevent US to be actively engaged in East China Sea, South China Sea, even Western Pacific. I don't talk about. They set 2 island chains. Within the first island chains, the left one, they claim that's the core interest of China. Nobody can offend this Chinese core interest in East China Sea, in South China Sea. In the Indian Ocean, gradually China wants to exercise influence by means of One Road, One Belt initiative. And China, because of their fear of the checking power by the United States and India in the Indian Ocean, they want to come out into Arabian Sea by land, into Bengal One by land, by means of constructing railways and others into Myanmar, Bangladesh, the ports, and into Pakistan, so-called CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor concept, which is strongly opposed by India because that corridor passes through Kashmir into the Arabian Sea, eventually reaching to Europe. The old, how to say, Silk Road of seas. Otherwise, the land Silk Road. And China is very much interested in exploring the polar route, which is much closer to Europe than One Belt, One Road initiatives. This is that one, so I skip it. Talking about our relationship with India, I would recall some of the major milestones. Before the World War II, Japan was awakened through a sort of revolution of Meiji Restoration. In a short span of time, 30 years or so, we could become a powerful industrial state with a sizable military capacity. So we could beat China, Qin dynasty, then we could beat, beyond our capacity maybe, but we could beat Tsarist Russia. And looking at those developments, the Japanese far-sighted people, like Okakura Tenshin, he is an artist, a critic of arts, started to advocate to have the solid relations with India of the British Raj at that time. And he was completely agreeing to Rabindranath Tagore, who was advocating the importance of Asia, East Asia. Our association was created 1903. So this year is 115-year anniversary. Ours is the oldest. Japan-British Association was founded 5 years later than us. So the Friendship Association with the colonial power, British Empire, was created after we started to have the relationship with India 5 years ago. So how old our institution is, you can understand that. So all those politicians, artists, industrialists realized that anyway, sooner or later will come the age of Asia. And when we are talking about Asia, we have to think about India. That's their perception, not their vision. And then this is another importance. Looking at the victory of Japan over Tsarist Russia, many independent fighters in Asia realized that we may have something to learn from Japan. Sun Wen of China came to Japan for that purpose. And Rash Bihari Bose, who escaped from the British hands in Calcutta, came to Japan in 1914. And they continued independence movement in Japan. When Japan defeated the British army in the Malaysian Peninsula, and then the capitulation of British army in Singapore, about 50,000 officers and soldiers of Indian origin, they lost themselves because already British has capitulated. So they decided, instead of going back to British Raj, they decided to create Indian National Army under the guidance of Rash Bihari Bose and well-wishers of Japan who supported Rash Bihari Bose. And when Rash Bihari Bose became a Sikh, he decided to ask Subhas Chandra Bose to come to Japan. Japan was associated with Nazi Germany, Axis power. So we asked, our leaders asked Hitler to allow Chandra Bose, who was staying in Germany, to come to Japan. Hitler said yes, and he provided a German submarine. On board that, Chandra Bose came up to off the shore of Durban, South Africa. There, Japanese Navy sent the Japanese submarines. So Subhash Chandra Bose moved from German submarine to Japanese submarines. And I show you. This upper left photo is Mr. Chandra Bose on the boat provided by the Japanese Navy from German submarine to the Japanese submarines. By the way, the photos of Subhash Chandra Bose, upper left to the very left, that is Rash Bihari Bose. And on the right side, she got married with Japanese lady. She was from good family and descendants of Soma family. Descendants of Soma are now having Nakamuraya restaurant, specialized in, to some extent, Indian curry foods in Shinjuku, very busy Shinjuku areas. And Rash Bihari Bose, in front of him, gentlemen, senior gentlemen were sitting there. They were the excellent leaders, strong leaders, which are checking the imperial government. And they decided, because the government of Japan was associated with the British before the start of the Second World War. We were allied with British Empire. So instead of the government supporting Rash Bihari Bose, these gentlemen, who are very much influential figures, they supported Rash Bihari Bose. So Mr. Chandra Bose participated on the left, on the right below. Commander of INA, Chandra Bose, and this one, Prime Minister Tojo, Hideki Tojo. He was found after the war by the International Tribunal. Descendants of Chandra Bose. Sugata Chandra Bose, who is sitting in the upper house of your parliament, professor at Harvard. Her mother, she was the chairman of Foreign Affairs Committee of your parliament. And myself, we are good friends. Let's go back to this. After the defeat of Japan, capitulation, August 1945, Netaji Chandra Bose lost himself. There is no Japanese to back him up. So apparently he decided to go to Soviet Union to seek Soviet Union's help. He decided to go to Russia, to the Soviet Union by way of Japan. But when his plane arrived in Taipei, Taiwan, the plane crashed. And he was incinerated by the Japanese, because the Taiwan was still the Japanese territory. And Netaji's ashes came back to Tokyo, and he has been kept in this temple, Renkoji Temple, in the west of central Tokyo. We every year, August 17th, that's the day of his passing away in Taipei. Everywhere we hold the memorial, praying for the sake of the peace of Mr. Netaji's soul. But frankly speaking, since some time, there is no representative from the Indian embassy, let alone no visitors from major visitors from India. Why? In India, there are some polemics. So-called the Netajis ashes are authentic or not. India sent 3 survey missions with some lapse, but in spite of the passage of 120 years or so, some people still believe that Netaji may be living somewhere in Siberia, or maybe he should have come back to Bihar, something like that. And the government, successive governments of India are yet to decide to recuperate the heroes' bones back here. So we are keeping them. We are respecting, we are paying tributes. One day this has to be stopped for the sake of Indian hero. Because in your parliament there is a huge statue of Subhash Chandra Bose. Airport of Calcutta is called Subhash Chandra Bose Airport. In spite of that, why the Indian governments, successive governments, are hesitating to get back his heroes' ashes back home? So after the Second World War, Japan was occupied by Allied powers, by General MacArthur and things. And our leaders of wartime were judged by International Tribunal of Far East, and most of the leaders, including Mr. Tojo, were sentenced to death. However, Judge Vinod Pal from Calcutta, international legalist, excellent scholar, he wrote a minority opinion saying that this tribunal is not valid because tribunal was established to judge guilty or non-guilty of the crimes which did not exist before the tribunal, before the regulations of international law. So you cannot apply domestically even the criminal punishments which did not exist at the time of the crimes. We are a legally binded country. We have to obey the existing laws. That's the argument of Justice Pal, the only one courageous judge, supported by, to a lesser extent, supported by a Dutch judge. But he decided, yes, to hang them. But Justice Pal's opinion is highly respected and appreciated by all of us, the Japanese. His name is more famous than Netaji Chandra Bose, for example. India became independent 49, 47, 49, with at the request of Japanese children who said that we have lost all the important animals in the central Ueno Zoo of Tokyo, because during the bombardments and others, they may be getting out of the zoos, causing many problems. They were killed by poison and others. So the children, about 1,000, wrote a letter to Mr. Nehru. We want an elephant again in Ueno Zoo. The Prime Minister obliged. And he found a baby elephant in Karnataka named Indira. after his daughter and sent them. That is a very important symbolic act from India to defeated Japan. A light of hope was given by baby elephant Indira. Diplomatic relations was established in 1951. San Francisco Peace Treaty was signed 52, 51 in San Francisco. But Mr. Nehru declared in the parliament, Indian government presented several requests and conditions to give better position to Japan after the restoration of diplomatic relations. But India's suggestions were rejected by Americans and others. So Mr. Nehru decided not to go there, to San Francisco. Instead of this, India waited 1 year until the Treaty of Peace was enacted in 1952, April 1952. Mr. Nehru waited for that. So he decided to sign separate peace treaty with Japan with fully independent Japan, not the Japan under the occupation. That is how the India was courageous, how India's spirit of independence, spirit of saying the truth, even the bitter truth, to a much strong power. That's what one of the Indians' merits to become a superpower. Okay. And then followed many things after that. Suzuki established. Maruti Suzuki joint venture was established in 1982 under the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. By the way, Mrs. Indira Gandhi receiving the death of Indira, baby elephant, named after her, was felt very sorry about. So she decided to send 2 other elephants, named one Asha, the other Daya. In Hindi is love or what that. And during my tenure, Defense Minister was George Fernandez. I talked about this episodes to George Fernandez because his partner, Mrs. Jayatri, I think the Jayatri, she was a girl who was present at the presenting ceremony of how to say, the baby elephant Indira to Ueno Zoo. George Fernandez didn't know that. So I talked about this. Then defense minister decided, I want to donate my own baby elephant. I said, okay. And he sought one baby elephant from Bihar, from his constituency. But because of maltreatment, the baby elephant died. So he sought another one and asked me how to name her. I told George Fernandez, this is your elephant, you name. I'm not qualified to name. One day after he decided to name the elephant Surya, the god of the sun, saying that Japan is the country of rising sun. Surya is appropriate name. How about this? I said, oh, fantastic. Now Surya is there. Asha, Daya, and Surya there in Ueno Zoo. If you have some chance to visit Tokyo, please go to Ueno Zoo, skipping the panda's house, full of children. So you don't need to visit. Just beyond panda's house, you have the 3 emissaries of peace from India, plus 1 male elephant from Thailand. Okay, 4 elephants over there. When 1991, you had a foreign currency crisis. The finance minister Dr. Manmohan Singh went to Japan, and Japan was obliged to make an emergency lending. Then IMF followed the Japanese path, and you could get out of the crisis. When I came here as ambassador in March 1998, I had many hopes to promote our relationship, but I was greeted by nuclear tests 2 months later. Then we lodged a protest to Mr. Vajpayee's government. Mr. Brajesh Mishra was National Security Advisor. I went very often to him, our Foreign Secretary. We were obliged to suspend our official development assistance programs. 2 years, I needed 2 years to restore relations. Before Japan, the United States restored their relationship with India. Mr. and Mr. Clinton came to Delhi. As ambassador, I was attending the parliament session welcoming Mr. Clinton. He made an excellent speech. But after the speech, when the couple started to move to the exit, almost all the MPs, lower house, upper house, started not to walk, started to run, to shake hands. Some of them were running, not in the corridors, but on the desk, along desk, running this way, this way. So I was really amazed about, and I sent the message, my own message to the Japanese government. Now is the time for Japan to do the same. And the Prime Minister Yoshiro Mori, who is now the chairman of my association, decided to come. And together with Mr. Vajpayee, issued a declaration of global partnership. Why global? I thought global is an appropriate word because Japan, India, at that time already were major powers. We shouldn't be concerned with our own problems only. We should not be promoting our own interests. We have to look at outside world global issues, now global warming and many others. So that is a global cooperation between the two countries. Then the stage of diplomatic relations came to the stage which made possible the visit of Their Majesties, the Emperor and the Empress. It was 2013. In the meantime, the successive Prime Minister decided to promote the global partnership, upgrade global partnership. First, to strategic and global partnership under Dr. Manmohan Singh and Prime Minister Koizumi. Then when Mr. Modi became Prime Minister and visited Japan, one of the first countries he visited after Nepal and Bhutan, I think, he decided, together with Mr. Abe, incumbent Prime Minister, to upgrade further, putting special. So 3 adjectives now: special, strategic, and global. This is a rare phenomenon. Why special? According to the explanation of Mr. Modi, special means that our relationship is linked by spiritual bondage. No other two countries' relations are spiritually linked. According to the perception of Mr. Modi, Japan and India are linked by Buddhist traditions. Hindu deities came to Japan and changed the names. 3 gods: Brahma, Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and their spouses, all of them, Indra, many others, introduced in Japan. So we are very familiar with Hinduism. But these deities of Hinduism became, I am sorry to say, the guardians of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in Japan. But anyway, we are closely linked to religions. Now I have to finish?
It's fine. You can continue, sir.
Yes. So this one, this part of things will be important, but a kind of repetition. This is the visit of imperial majesties. This is the visit of Prime Minister Abe here with Mr. Modi on open car, on open jeep with Mrs. Abe. It's a really astonishing welcome. And they inaugurated the high-speed railway system, Shinkansen system here. Recent development, which I have not mentioned is this. Let's see. We have decided since the time of Dr. Manmohan Singh to promote big project between Mumbai and Delhi. DMIC, Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor project. 6 states are there, from Delhi to Maharashtra. Each state is expected to create 4 industrial and commercial centers, 24 in competition. The first come, first basis. They are doing that. And along this corridor, we are now engaged in the construction of a new freight-only line. So you are separating the train system for passengers and the train system for freight. The project is going on. And now that is the distance of 1,500 kilometers. Between Ahmedabad and Mumbai, 500 kilometers, the Shinkansen project has started. In southern India, between Bengaluru and Chennai, there is another industrial corridor project, CBIC, Chennai Bengaluru Industrial Corridor. Now under the leadership of Mr. Modi, we started the development projects in northeast India, 7 states, and eventually we would like to create highways or improve the system of railways to up to the border of Myanmar, then into Myanmar to create a sort of connectivity into the heartland of ASEAN nations. By the way, Myanmar is very important for both of us. Netajis Chandra Bose decided to participate in the so-called infar operations, Japanese Imperial Army's operations, a mess of tactical mistakes. They were obliged to retreat in a very much tragic manner. But we are closely associated with Infar, Kohima, in those states. So Japan is most suited to participate in the development of northeastern regions. So that's what we are doing that. Then India will be connected by land to ASEAN countries. India is now connected by sea with Mekong Delta region. That will be a very big, grand strategy of India and Japan. This is the visit of Mr. Modi in Tokyo very recently. Two prime ministers are chatting in Abe's private villa on the foot of Mount Fuji. On the right side, another photo, an informal luncheon, working luncheon, discussing how to deal with China, how to deal with North Korea, very sensitive issues, how to deal with Trump, by the way. So no hint of discussions have been coming out, completely covered with crowd. However, what has been announced publicly are many. First, in security areas, they decided to upgrade the ministerial meetings of defense minister and foreign minister, what we call 2+2. Up to now, that has been conducted on secretary level. Now we are now starting to have ministerial level of 2+2, like you have the same system with the United States, 2+2 ministerial. And what is very important, number 4, strengthening of exchanges between all the services of Indian armed forces as Japan's self-defense. Up to now, your Navy, our maritime defense forces have been closely linked, but not so much Army, not so much Air Force. But they decided now, in all areas of military services, we are promoting our cooperation. In addition to that, they decided to start our cooperation on space. In economic areas, what I think is important is currency swap agreement of US $75 billion. So the 1991, you are faced with foreign currency crisis. No more. When rupee will be attacked by speculators and others, Japan is there to provide not yen, US dollars to India. But maybe this arrangement will not be necessary. And new things, India's longevity strategy. You have, under Mr. Modi, longevity strategy. We have Asian Health Initiative. Let's join two initiatives together. And agriculture cooperation, intellectual property rights, highway cooperation, something like that. What is more important is people-to-people contacts. Let me show. You can't see this. Maybe, this is the comparison between China and Japan in terms of respective countries' relationship with, with Japan. Look at this figure. The number of jobs visitors to India, 220,000. Chinese, 2.6 million. 1/12. It's just all this. Double-digit difference. That shows how Japan and China relationship is closely linked, while our relationship with India is yet to be, developed. This means that the potential is good. Potential is great. We are lacking behind China, but that means potential is bigger than maybe our relations with China. Finally, I would mention that our relationship, free and open Indo-Pacific Vision, Indo-Pacific strategy, and India's Act East policy will be extending to Africa. So we are creating another industrial and commercial corridor between Indo-Pacific Pacific region and Africa and Middle East countries. So this is a new initiative. This means really, in my opinion, the true meaning of global partnership. So the two countries have reached the stage of this maturity. So let's congratulate with the two prime ministers, with many leaders from both sides, that we have established this sort of constructive, positive, excellent relationship between us. So let's hope that this sort of cooperation will continue to develop, continue to flourish. Thank you very much. By the way, this is my book, especially the right one, The Last Superpower India. Mr. Suzuki Osamu there. It's a plot of the publisher. With his photo over there, the people may be thinking this book was written by Osamu Suzuki, not by me. Then the book will be selling better than mine. Thank you very much.
Maybe the English edition coming September.
English edition may be coming out next year, hopefully. But I have already spoken the gist of my book. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In fact, his book in Japanese, he has gifted, Ambassador Hirabayashi has gifted to our Japan Center Library. And those who would like to read it in Japanese, we do have Japanese language students who can read and understand as well. They are most welcome to refer to that. Friends, Ambassador has to be leaving in another 20 minutes, but we have, I would suggest about 15 minutes of question answers, and then finally Yatindra Bhai would like to conclude with his closing remarks. So may I request, the house is open for any questions. I think this was a brilliant presentation. We all found it extremely absorbing. So either on the presentation, or he's extempore, a wonderful speaker himself, anything on Japan-India relations, feel free to ask questions, friends. Please, just raise your finger and yes, got this.
How did this Kyoto-Kashi or Varanasi relationship came about? I mean, that seems to be making some impact on the city here in India.
When Mr. Modi visited Japan, September 2014, he decided to visit Kyoto. And Abe went to Kyoto to welcome him. The old capital of Japan, full of temples. And he conducted Mr. Modi to Toji Temple, where there are so-called three-dimensional, series of statues of Buddhas and others, surrounded by the guardians, which are Indra, Vishnu, many others, Brahma, even Brahma. So the people didn't know the value of these gods, so misinterpreted something like they are very strong gods and goddesses. Why not asking them to be the guardians of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? But anyway, that is a symbol of our spiritual bondage. So Mr. Modi decided to visit Kyoto. And on that occasion, the mayor of Kyoto decided to have a sister city agreement with Varanasi. Varanasi is a spiritual city of Hinduism, but for us, Sarnath is very important. Sarnath. So the spiritual bondage through Buddhism can't go without Sarnath. So that's why Kyoto is associated with Varanasi. And I think there will be many projects of development in Varanasi, joint projects. Thank you.
ありがとうございます。今ちょっとインドに3ヶ月間だけいて、僕のいる大学とグジャラート大学の大学が交換留学結んでて、それでいるんですけど、国と国は新幹線鉄道のなんていうんですかね、鉄道の支援であったりとか ODA とかあるんですけど、これから対人と人、日本人とインド人ってなったらどういう付き合い方をしていったらいいのか、そういうのを聞きたいですね。
This boy is talking about people to people contact. He is here as exchange programs of students. The people to people contact is very important, which would constitute a solid base of our relationship. So far, the visitors of India to Japan, vice versa, are not what we should desire. But we have to do many things. Exchange programs of students, of youth programs, academic exchanges, artistic cultural exchanges, and tourism. Tourism is very important. And for promoting all this, we have to develop a certain kind of infrastructure and making good advertisements, public relationship. And both countries are now doing that. Eventually, I think we will be having a better people-to-people relationship.
Yes, please. Mike.
Hello, my question is about bullet train project. I feel Japan as a country is going out of way to help India in this implement this project. But I feel in India we are not so prepared in terms of our timing of implementation of projects. It is possible that it can be delayed or some hindrances may appear in the future. So my question is, what is the view of Japanese people and political leadership about this situation?
Excuse me?
What is the situation? What is the feeling of Japanese people and political leadership about this situation?
What kind of a situation?
It can be delayed project.
He says that, as per him, people in India are not so serious on Shinkansen project. What is the view of the leadership of Japan?
We are not so prepared. It is possible.
I understand that there are some people
Yeah.
who would prefer the amelioration of the conventional railway system, because your system is probably behind the needs. But let's see, once people come to know what Shinkansen is all about, their perception will change. Whether the youth they are getting on board or not, if they hear the reputation of Shinkansen system, all the perceptions will change. I'm sure, and Japan is doing the best of our efforts to introduce the appropriate system from Japan, the hardware. We are constructing the factories to produce the trains, the cars of Shinkansens, and the management skill, all the necessary things, while we are continuously helping the safety upgrading of conventional Indian conventional railway systems. So we are engaged in both ways. But I think that these people will be pleasantly surprised once Shinkansen will be starting to run.
Thank you.
Yes. अन्य आप पूछिए.
Hello. Mr. Ambassador, India had been maintaining very good relations with Japan since 1949. And whatsoever we are seeing today, and do you see really a big difference between the policies being adopted by Japan and India 5 years back and now?
5 years back. You know, our relationship is being developing in an accelerated way. If I compare the time of my tenure here as ambassador to the present situation between India and Japan, it's a sort of the tectonic change of our relationship. And if you look at all the parts of India which are moving quickly, partly because of your own efforts, domestic efforts, but partly because of foreign investments, partly because of JICA's cooperation, many things. You know. One example is metro system. This is the tie of Delhi Metro, the gift of the first president, Dr. Sridharan, because I was working to develop the system. Everywhere, not only in Delhi, but here, the Japanese-style metro system is underway. And what is very important from my viewpoint is not only the hardware of the system of metro in India. This is very important for your convenience. But what I am very proud of is another contribution of Japan to India, the management of the system. If you look at every station of Delhi Metro, the people are paying due fares of the tickets, making correct lines, no troubles. Trains are arriving on time, leaving on time. The fast trains is reserved only to women to avoid inordinate harassment by gentlemen. The system exists also in Japan, introduced from Japan. And the management of the system is excellent. Dr. Sridharan once came up to me, I'm in trouble because National Railway Company, as well as Railway Minister, pressured me to connect the metro system with National Railway System, like in Japan. But if I would be obliged to do that, my dream of independent Delhi metro system would be destroyed because of delayed arrival of National Railway trains and others. Some people are getting on board without paying fees, etc. And he was right, and Mr. Vajpayee told Mr. Sridharan, don't worry about this sort of political pressure. I am here to support you. So please do it as you like. Then the Delhi Metro started as you are seeing that. Here, the Mumbai, Hyderabad, everywhere, even in Calcutta, Bengaluru, Chennai, just the same systems are running. That is what I would call the revolution of mindset. I don't call the cultural revolution, which is Chinese connotation. So, but it's the mindset, how to say, the civility thing. That the daily metro system and the other systems have developed this sort of mindset. So I would congratulate all these Indian peoples who have been doing the correct things, to start with Dr. Sridharan.
Yes. We'll take two questions, last two questions.
Japan's growth story post World War II is quite impressive, and we respect it. According to you, which qualities youth of today's India need to inculcate to replicate the similar growth story here in India?
I can.
What he's saying is, what should the Indian youth
Look at the
take
Japanese
as
values to
inspiration
be
from Japan
integrated in Indian values.
for the success and the growth?
Indian youth is very intelligent, and there are problems both on the Japanese side and Indian side. Japanese people in general, they are thinking that India is more or less like Southeast Asian countries, Thailand, Indonesia, but it might be totally different. Indians' intellectual capacity, brains, are very close to Westerners, a way of doing business and others. The Japanese, including youth, are too much accustomed to Southeast Asians, almost always smiling, not saying bitter things. Sometimes that causes the problem later. In India, you have to be accustomed to make deals with a tough stance into details, just in case that you will be obliged to go to the court, tribunal. So the Indian, on the part of Indians, Indians are globally appreciated. Leaderships of IT engineers and financial global institutions are led by Indians. Even the U.S. ambassador to the United States, Nikki Haley-san, is of Indian origin. He's there at the right moment to deliver tough things to the United Nations. But Indian youth especially, I hope they would be accustomed to East Asian way of doing business and everything. So we have to add two mentalities, two pattern of behavior, and divide into two. That would make the best combination. So once you'll be there, you could understand easily the way of the behaviors and the mindset of Japanese youth. And that's one of the key elements of the Japanese success in the international community.
Yes. Yes. Last question. Yeah.
Sir, my question is, United States claims that the end of Second World War from the side of Japan came after the US dropped atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Had that not been happen, how much time do you think the Japanese empire would have continued to fight allied powers and other, I mean, allies. If the atomic bomb has not been dropped, what were the resources Japanese people had to continue the fight with allies?
Hypothetical question. But you know, even the first bomb was dropped in Hiroshima, the Japanese military government pledged to continue the fight until Japan received the second bomb in Nagasaki. They didn't realize the tragedy of Japan. The military government at that time was really crazy. The Emperor of Showa was very much worried about. Looking at the two bombs, he decided to intervene. And otherwise, the war would have continued for several months to come, with many more casualties on Japanese side and on American side, because the government of the military establishment pledged to fight up to the last Japanese, if necessary, with some weapons made of bamboos. So that really, the mindset was almost crazy, and only the authority of the emperor was effective against those military leaderships. It was a luck for the Japanese people. And also another luck was that we were occupied by Americans, not by Russians, nor by Chinese. Americans who was fighting in a fierce way with the Japanese, but they decided to help after the tragedy. So the Japanese have no resentment against Americans. We are excellent alliance.
His Excellency Hiroshi Hirabayashi and President of Indo-Japan Association, Mukesh Bhai, ladies and gentlemen. It has been indeed, I should say, a contemplating and very thoughtful evening what we have spent with His Excellency, former Ambassador to India from Japan. First of all, the kind of lucid analysis what he has presented for us, it's a huge endorsement from a very powerful economy of the world, second largest, maybe with China going forward, but it has created its own economic excellence with lots of discipline, perfection, and also the culture which talked about lifetime employment for people in their organizations. So the country from where His Excellency is coming and the kind of analysis what he has done, I think we can take a lot of pointers out of it and we can really get into execution mode whereby this country can really come to the level of expectations, whatever he has posed, and I am also quite optimistic about it. But if you look at relationship between India and Japan, 3,000 years ago, India presented Buddhism to Japan. And we revisited that relationship way back in 1903, where the Indo-Japan Friendship Association was set up. So it's not something where Japan has been coming to us. They have been our very, very strong friend for millenniums together. And that's what is being reflected while India's aspiration to become independent at the time of Second World War. Japan could seize the opportunity and offer that kind of assistance to India to become independent. And that is not a small thing. If you look at our diplomatic relations also, we are now more than 60-year-old diplomatic relationship. There have been visits of prime ministers, there have been visits of royal family of Japan twice in India. That shows the kind of affection, the kind of attention which people of Japan give it to India. Basically, if you look at the growth of India-Japan relationship, it has grown now to the level of global partnership. And this has been identified in times of our late Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And thereon, our present Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Bhai Modi, and Honorable Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Shinzo Abe, have consolidated that relationship with lot of strategic moves. And the point is that every year they are meeting, not only on the cultural front, on strategic front, on infrastructure, everything. I mean, nothing is left. And Japan is our reliable, strong partner for India's aspiration to become a leading power on the global arena, without any doubt. And the kind of strategic initiatives what we are taking together, I mean, I was really impressed the last slide what His Excellency presented, where we are talking about Asia-Pacific Economic Corridor with cooperation of Japan and India, and also Asia-Africa Corridor. And the point is that if you go back in past, with 3,000 armed personnel from a trading company of UK, East India Trading Company, they could rule this country with what? They created infrastructure. Railways were established in 1848. The first railway train ran between Thane to Mumbai. And thereon, that is the history. Because commerce and people-to-people contact and global perceptions, they always link with connectivity, and connectivity comes with infrastructure. And there, the way in which Japan has collaborated with India in Northeast, in Bengaluru Economic Corridor, Bengaluru-Chennai, Delhi-Mumbai, I mean, these are the examples of solid support given by a country which believes in working together. And I would be very much looking forward to your book in English, because it has been so nicely analyzed and presented. It gives us a confidence that maybe with all the points which have been presented, if we do it successfully, there should not be any doubt that India can be a superpower. Thank you, His Excellency, and may I request all of you to give him a big round of applause for a wonderful presentation.